Originally, we were hoping to build in September of last year, all the treatment systems so that we could get enough material that we could build a very big structure. But it didn't work out with funding, getting us here, and timing. So Mitch is committed to harvesting and getting to work on the treatment system so we can actually build good structures. Do you have a plug that can be drained? Why you designed it with no plug? Or how are we supposed to get water out of here? Okay. Because I think we're going to end up having to replace the water. It's been too long. It's all starting to rust and too much leaf matter inside. This one is what we're going to use as our heat treatment. We're going to mix the borax in here with new water, and this is where we need to make a cover for it so that when it rains, it doesn't dilute the borax, because borax can be used over and over. We'll be using borax and boric acid, a 5% solution. 3% for the borax, 2% for the boric acid, and 95% water. Yeah. Then we have to heat it up and get a fire underneath for a period of time. I'm not sure what we'll use, but we'll probably end up using bamboo to get it cooking. Because then we put the bamboo inside, a couple of bars to keep it submerged until it comes up to 60 degrees. Maintain that for an hour to 4 hours, depending. That will get the borax inside. And then let it cool down. We take all those poles out, and then we can put our next ones in and boil it up again. So we have a hydrometer that will measure the amount of saturated solution. A hydrometer measures the specific gravity of the solution. So water has a specific gravity, but when a solution is added to it, like a salt, it changes the specific gravity of that mixture. So this week we will be turning this on, and we'll hopefully be able to go through a bunch of the bamboo that we collect. We need enough material. If we want to build something, 3 months beforehand, we have to get the material ready so that it can have time to dry and be ready to build. If you can keep doing that, then it value adds as well, because what the farmer gets for a pole, it's not worth anything, but if he can treat it, it increases the value. This simple process of treating it easily puts 5 times the value on it, 5 to 10 times the value. After it's treated, you're able to build with it. Pardon me?
In Tanzania, one pole would be about 25 cents.
And how much would a treated pole be worth? $2.
We don't have.
Okay, that's going to be a whole valuation in the economy here.
Think about it.
If you're doing a boucherie method, which forces it through, you have to do it within 2 days. Otherwise, the cell wall starts closing up and it doesn't let the material through it.
Soaking one, hot or cold?
Hot or cold, about a week. Yeah.
So you basically got to blitz it.
Yeah. Create a harvest treatment schedule. It makes sense that when you have this going, that you have a regular schedule, and we'll be doing that in the course. I have a basic chart for this purpose. So you can see how many days a week you can harvest. You harvest on this day and you harvest on this day, and you get enough material to be able to run the system and to keep that going on. There's a potential when you're putting this whole pole in here, we have to pierce each of those nodes. Not only pushing through the center, we also have to pierce the top side of it. Could be air.
It's a hot system.
It needs to be in there for 24 hours. You have to keep it up to the temperature for around 1 to 4 hours, and then
Stay in there 24 hours.
to cool down so you actually can get it out. And it doesn't have to go down to base temperature, but you want to get it down so you can actually lift it out.
On the cold ones, you've got to put in for how many days?
The cold one, if it's horizontal, can take up to 10 days. And the vertical ones, I've had it go as quick as 5 days. We can actually tell, because for a couple test samples, we'll be using a clothing dye. What happens is you can see it migrate out and into the poles turn pink. And when you look at the big systems, massive ones, they're putting 50 poles at a time. But the cost of making that, you wouldn't probably build it in steel like this. You'd probably end up doing it as a concrete barrier, and then have pits under the side of it where you could heat it up. Yeah, you can heat up a concrete bath. I think they're line systems.
By the time it's done, so you'll say you warm it for longer.
Yeah. But there's a big expense in that whole process. With the vertical one, you retrieve much more of the material because you're getting each individual bit. You can do your prescribed number of poles, and the system actually speeds up because it's contained within the wall system, and you can actually see where it happens. Where the other ones, you don't really know. That's why you're keeping in for 10 days.
Vertical one, you need the leaves on, yeah?
No, the vertical one we are doing as a pole that's like a giant cup.
You suck it up. Oh yeah, you make the holes.
The one where you're using the leaves on and putting it in a bucket, it's not 100%, but there is a way to check. So the way to check is using turmeric powder. So if you took a pole, anywhere in that pole, and you chopped it open and dipped it in turmeric, if it doesn't have any borax, it'll stay yellow. If it has borax, it's come up that high into it, it will turn red.
Oh wow, oh, that's chemistry. Okay.
That's a chemistry lesson. It's a good way to check if there's borax within it because there's a chemical reaction.
Okay, so
You would test.
You would test both ends, yes. And if it didn't show up here, then you go down farther in the pole to make sure that it got to a point.
yeah, the vertical ones you don't heat.
The vertical ones we don't heat, and you don't have to do that check. So you know there's borax ideally through the whole thing. And you have to, every day, you have to top it up a little bit because you see it get drunk.
Oh, yeah, no, that's great. I prefer that way.
Yeah. And if you're in a position like that, like this sort of place with lots of vertical, it means you don't have to really dig a tower. You could do here on a slope if you wanted to.
That's cool.
Yeah. If you saw, like where I did, you saw those pictures of the one where I treated the vertical soak. It was an old granary, so there was a wall that was 4 meters, and then I just built a little table at the top, and I sat there and filled the poles with a pump. It was very easy.
If you've got a slope, that's the best.
It just speeds up that system, and that's why that one's extremely good. A lot of expense went into this, and it has the potential to create products quicker because it only takes 1 day, but there's a lot of resource that goes into heating up that. And this also needs to have a lid. Because if it rains, then it changes the relationship of the mixture solution with the amount of water. That's why we use the hydrometer. Okay. Yeah.
That family is different from the other family.
Yes.
And those families are different from the families so what caused that family to be like that? Because you can see for it has branches.
Yeah, it's just a different genus. There are certain families that have a grander names like Dendrocalamus or Bambusa, and they are the overleading branches, and then there's a different varieties within there. They've become that way based on thousands of years in their relative climactic zone. There's a relationship when they're being planted as well. We've taken them and transplanted them here. Some go well and some don't. I could put a plant here and it could grow extremely well because it has a lot of light and it has a lot of moisture. And I can put it over here where it's super dry and it doesn't perform well. Why is that? Or else I plant them too close together and they're all competing for sunlight and moisture. But if I widen them up, they're fine. And I guess we'll get a better understanding when we actually go out to a farm where we can go help them out by cleaning out and showing the techniques to them. And at the same time, being able to harvest some poles. Maybe go up and we can do some splitting if anyone wants to split and see how that machine works. And then we can go down on our way out to look at one of the harvest ones we've done and get an idea of how much we've actually taken out of a comb that's old. Hello, I'm Martha. I'm Jay. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Jay.